moving into the next panel here, we've got some one is actually going to be making his second and soon to be third appearance because Von Frunten advanced to the finals. Congratulations on the Vonga advancement.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
So I'm going to start with the others, or we'll start with the others because we got a little bit of we got at least 90-second pitch from you earlier. Maybe we'll put Peter and Jason on the spot as well, make them do a 90-second pitch for what they're building. But I kid, you don't have to. You're welcome to share anything you'd like about what you are building. But do you mind just a brief introduction for those that may not be familiar yet? We'll start with Peter.
Hey, yeah. Thanks for having me. I need a banana for this. Does that help?
It's good.
So Bored Brewing, we do seltzers, beer, energy drinks. We are Ape Water Canada's partner, and we do some Web3 stuff that's coming up on ApeChain that I'm not going to talk about. But yeah, we ship to 48 states in the US, and we've been at ApeFest in Hong Kong. We had beer out there, and Lisbon, and just really pleased to be part of the ecosystem and a Made by Apes partner. And yeah, we do IRL stuff with Ape IP and basically any IP that Web3 has as well. So we've done some fun collaborations like with Quirkies and stuff like that too. So
and one, you're being too humble because one collaboration, I think you can see it there in the background, maybe some camouflage beer there that was a pretty decent collaboration that you guys pulled off.
We did a collaboration with Vape and Yuga, which was unbelievable for us. So that was fun. Yeah.
Jason, we'll go to you next. I'm excited for this panel because while they're physical items and we're talking direct-to-consumer products and in real-life experiences, all three of these individuals have done unique stuff in crypto, whether it's on-chain or leveraging the IP that Peter mentioned. Jason, you've got a really unique background, I mean, both in Web3, but also prior. For those who are not familiar, do you mind giving us a little bit of a glimpse into what all you've been doing?
Yeah, my background is actually more in supply chain logistics. I've kind of professionally worked through big box retail, Walmart, Target, Amazon. I helped launch HelloFresh as the director of America's logistics, scaling them from private to public. And then I left Bloomberg LP about a year ago, running their logistics program for the Americas, while also having a hospitality group. So, my kind of story is a merge of my worlds and kind of finding NFTs through flipping and then people wanting to use their IP and trying to empower and enable that for other people, which actually started Bored Bagels prior to MBAs. I think that journey has really continued to have some major milestones, whether it's with Bored Trading Co. or some other developments that we've had recently. But I can pinpoint, in real life events to kind of all those major milestones. So, kind of resonating with the conversation from earlier.
And Von Frunten, I don't want to short you either. I know we got to hear from the Vonga store earlier, but we really didn't get a chance to get into your background. Do you mind sharing a little bit of that, and then we'll jump right into things?
Yeah, sure thing. So, yeah, nothing about my background would make you think I'm getting into the clothing business, but actually lawyer by training. So back to the earlier comment that lawyers kill creativity. I'm trying to break that meta here. But no, lawyer by training, but for the past really 10 years or so, been in marketing and business development, predominantly some other industries, kind of outside of Web3, and really just fell in love with Web3, around the same time, late 2020 to early 2021, and wanted to take, I think, the skill set that I kind of built out in my prior life with marketing, business development, dash in a little bit of legal in there, and try to apply it here. I think the creativity is amazing here. It's such a blank canvas, yeah, that's kind of what led me into Vonga, and met our mutual friend James Costa, which made me a believer that I too can start a clothing brand, and here we are.
I love it. Go ahead, Laura.
No, I was just gonna say that life is full of dualities, and I think that even just from these introductions is it's exciting to see that we're not defined just by like if you are a lawyer and then that's the only thing you could do, or if this started as something else and then you have a new idea. I think it does inspire a lot of people to break out of whatever mold or whatever story you tell yourself or whatever skill set, instead of pushing you forward, is going to like draw you a little bit backwards and say like, well, this is the only thing that I am, and we're so many different things. So I heard a lot of collaboration, not only of the business that each of you are building, but the collaboration. So I would love to pick your brain. That we could start with Peter about what impact have these collaborations, had in your brand so far.
For me, it's just the enjoyment of the experience, primarily the collaborations bring, because working with other people is kind of the best part. My whole like reason to be in Web3 is that I just somehow think randomly that most of the people who got in here earlier and are still coming into it seem to be some of the best people I've met in business and life. And so, working with Gene and stuff like that, and just Jason helping out and things like that. And, I've got my board shorts in the back, Chris, and all the IRL experiences. And, Laura, you and I met in Austin, and we've had good conversations and stuff like that. And so for me, the collaboration, I know it sounds how does that make you money? It's more like the satisfaction of the endeavor. And so working with Poppy and Quirkies, and his energy is infectious. And like, I could honestly list about 60 people in a row where doing the Bape collaboration was just exhilarating and fun and energetic, and it kind of trumps the stress and the concerns and the issues. And so Web3 for me at this point is very collaborative and still very fun and engaging. So that, I think that's the one thing I would take away from what the collaborations bring, is it can really make it fun and give you the motivation when things are maybe going a little tough. And so that's the best part of it for me. Working with Apewater, Quirkies, I've got so many different, all the people, we have 50 different founding IP contributors on the can. Every single one of them are wonderful human beings. So yeah, it's just been a lot of fun.
I love it. I just, everything you guys are saying, like this is, I'm not just saying it because this is an ApeCon, ApeChain ecosystem or Ape ecosystem space. It really is so much collaboration over competition. And while the three of you may not work directly in the same, industry or same exact space, it's, I think a common thing is like, while yes, you have things in your backgrounds that make sense, that set you up for success in what you're doing, all of you have kind of not pivoted, but moved into something that, like Von Front said, he wasn't leading an apparel brand before here. What was it? Why Onchain? What was it about this ecosystem, this space that was your driver to, okay, instead of just launching a traditional bagel company, or Jason in your case, what was it that wanted you to lean into this IP and this ecosystem when you had a thriving, successful business already?
Yeah, I think there's different aspects of that. One is the technology that exists and some of the kind of differentiation that you can drive with the technology and the layers that you add on top of products. I think there's definitely still a lot of opportunities and challenges in hospitality and Web2 e-commerce today that we can see the solution in Web3, right, with loyalty programs and platforms and things of that nature. But then you've also got this very kind of robust community and IP and storytelling that you don't necessarily find elsewhere, right? So I definitely think that we could all be probably building in Web2, but there definitely is a distinct difference in that feeling of building together here with this technology and the IP.
Von, you mentioned, we talking on the topic of collaboration and partnerships, and you had an announcement this morning. I don't know if you want to hit on that with another ecosystem brand. Are you comfortable sharing that? And how did that come together? Like what led you to partnering up with Ape Concierge?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So for those who missed it, we put out a tweet this morning. Vonga is partnering with. Sorry, I just freaked out there. Vonga is partnering with Ape Concierge, so our members are going to have access to a lot of the benefits in the events that Ape Concierge is putting on, for their Ape Pass holders. And I'll say this is an example of, you asked before, like, what do I think about collaborations? Like, collaborations for me in this space, in addition to what Peter and Jason said, they're unlocks, right? Entrepreneurship is hard. Entrepreneurship is lonely. And unless you are some, unicorn master of all trades or have a really well-staffed team, you are going to have gaps, right? And so one of the best things that I found in this space, and to be honest, I'm surprised it is still this way 4 years after I joined, is that DMs are open, right? Look, if I have a question about logistics and supply chain, I know I can DM Jason and he's going to be like, no, dude, like just use Shopify's, UPS, rates. They're going to be way better than you trying to set up something yourself, right? I know if I'm going to have a question about, going for VC funding, if I ever go down that route, right? Peter's done that before, and I'm pretty sure he's going to pick up a phone call. No pressure, Peter. If I do that, right? And so I think this space, it is so collaborative, it is so open, and there are so many people bringing so many skill sets, to Laura's point, that it's been the fun thing where I've maybe temporarily or mentally hit a roadblock before. I have been able to solve through a DM or a phone call, because that skill set pretty much exists somewhere in Web3 if you're willing to go out and find it. And I think that's the hard part. I many times also need a banana, and it's hard sometimes to put yourself out there saying, I need help. Can you help me? And I probably can't pay you. I'm just asking for a favor. You'll be surprised how many people actually return the favor on that.
Yeah, I would agree. It's happened many times on my end. I've reached out, and often it's not like I've had people return favors before or do a favor before, and like I do feel like I owe them one. I feel like I'm inconveniencing them. I've never felt that way. In anyone I've reached out to in the club, it's like I'm like every single time I've encouraged, do you need anything else? Reach out again. Like, I've had a conversation with every one of these individuals at one point or another about something in the club, something I'm working on, something they're working on. And I just like, that is what's really special about this ecosystem. And it's one of the things I struggle to convey that to those that aren't here, that haven't experienced it yet. Peter, you mentioned we talk about building on-chain, building in this ecosystem. The topic of loyalty programs, loyalty rewards got brought up earlier. Is there anything beyond the community, beyond the ecosystem that you've tapped into or that you feel be valuable to share with others today?
I think my hope for all of this is that loyalty, once it's built out on chain in a way that becomes ubiquitous, is that because everything is on chain, you can just retroactively go and apply loyalty to people who've been loyal. And I don't know if that's a pipe dream or not, but that's really my, Wale or Whale, whatever his name, he's always just posting recently about all the things that have gone to zero. And it's engagement farming and it's doing really well. But whenever I see that, I'm like, well, there's a few things in there that I hold that I still know people are grinding and working hard and doing, and they really are trying hard to do good things. And I'm not going to sell it just to like dunk on them, and I'm not going to reply to those Twitter posts to dunk on them either. But if they could retroactively apply loyalty to those, and there's the air miles, the decentralized air miles of X that actually picks up and does well, which I may or may not have set aside. Anyways, I just think that that's a really great way to immutability and the provenance and things on the blockchain that you can look back to that kind of show who you are as a collector, person, entrepreneur, everything. And that's no issue to anyone who's like, oh, this quadrupled and I'm going to sell one of the 4 that I have because I got to pay bills. I think that's a really fascinating way to look at loyalty. And Onchain just seems to be so much better than a centralized version of air miles where you can't sell this, you can't do that, and you're tied into a credit card being the one that gets you the air miles when the credit card is actually charging the business 2.5% to give the user 0.5% in rewards. It's a broken system. It's terrible. And everyone's got credit card debt because of it. So I think there's a really fun way and someone's going to build it. And I can't wait to either hop on board and plug into the API or be a part of it. So, yeah.
I was hoping it was going to be Von Pratten or Jason here. Jason, I know on the topic of like loyalty, because I was hoping that's where you go, Peter. My thought is, yes, Onchain unlocks a lot of new options as far as consumer loyalty. Also, this concept of like shared loyalty. And not that that's exactly what you're building already, Jason, but this idea of almost like shared network effects. And it's more than just Jason be able to help give you some logistical advice. You want to like maybe expand on what you're, whether it's Bored Trading Co. or any of the other initiatives you're building, and kind of that expanding on what Peter was talking about, this vision of loyalty programs and I don't that your thoughts on like this idea of shared loyalty, whereas like maybe down the road, I'm earning perks because I've got my loyalty points are up because I've got some Bored Brewing beer in my my shelf back here. I've got some Bored bagels, and I've got a Vonga crossover. And instead of just getting 10 points here, 10 points here, and 10 points here, I just got 100 points in the bigger bucket. Is that I know it's not built per se, but are we onto something here, do you think? Or feel free to take it a different way if you'd like.
No, I think so. And I think you start to see the pieces of it, right? Like I think you have, proof of attendance, you have, proof of play, you have, purchases, whether e-commerce or in real life. And, a lot of us, I think building brands and products, we're not necessarily big enough yet ourselves, right? We're not the Starbucks Odyssey program, right? We are really kind of scrapping, but yet we're building adjacent in this ecosystem in which, maybe we're not big enough as one brand, but if we can tie these pieces together and reward people for things that they're going to do or purchase or participate already, I think then you can capture the attention and have that persistent kind of activation and engagement to create something that might be sticky enough, right? And one brand, one product might not be able to do that right now, right? There's a lot of flash in the pan type of activations that eventually kind of might be overhyped and die by the wayside. I think we start to see those pieces bubble up and how we can kind of connect these things, whether through APIs or learn from the other ones. I think, that I hope is around the corner, right? And, for me, it's also experimenting with and not reinventing things that exist out there, right? Shopify have, 2 or 3 really kind of build out third-party loyalty programs that we're testing. We're testing through Bored Trading Co. As we support other MBAs through that channel. Can we see kind of the results or secondary sales from referrals and gamifying that a little bit, leveraging something that already exists and understanding kind of the pieces where Web3 could come in and add more to it. As we bring more products, more brands in there, having something that at least overarches, not just one product or brand so far.
Can I just to build on that and ask a question actually of, I guess I'm curious all 3 of your takes on this. I know that this is a, like kind of building on what you just said there, which is, you mentioned the idea of like, there are good Web 2 things that exist. And I guess if you're making a recommendation to someone who's like, look, I have a really cool D2C product idea. And I'll start with Peter on this one. Because obviously you work with Web 2 brands on this stuff, but you have all these Web 3 integrations. You talk about the advantages of both. Do you think there's how do you get that balance, or how do you talk to people about that balance of balancing the Web 2 solutions with the Web 3 things and where it solves and fixes. Because I think a lot of people's indication or inclination first at the time is like, throw out all the Web 2 and that corpo extractive crap. It's like, no, actually, like, they did some things right there. It's so how do you decide, Peter, when you're working there versus the Web 2 solutions versus where you're going to bolt in Web 3?
Usually Web 3 because I think everyone has noticed that it moves so fast that the solutions almost come to you. It's like, oh, what are AI agents? How do they work? What's going on here? Why does this, autonomous being have a wallet? And how does that apply to a Web 2 scenario? And so a little foreshadowing is, you can have an anthropomorphic AI agent brand mascot. So if Tony the Tiger could never tweet and answer people's questions and engage on the timeline and also reward kids with great token, and so that's where, you would bolt on something like that as opposed to being like, I'm trying to sell things on Shopify. How do I just make that all Web3 and rebuild the whole thing? Like, there's no point to that. But can you build in, a great token in a cereal brand that now uses, an ape as a brand mascot, and, add that in a seamless way where people are like, oh my goodness, I'm engaging with, Play-Doh, Play-Sol or something yesterday, Play-Doh things all over the place. If something there hits you and strikes you as like, oh, that actually works for my Web 2 brand and scenario because my product has a relation to Play-Doh and I can make all these cool AI generative art images of Play-Doh and have a token associated with that then adds value to a consumer or a user or a community member as opposed to like, I'm just doing this because it's neat. That's where I find Web3, and it does cause a lot of like pivot man syndrome, which I know who we're referencing there, but pivoting in the space, and it feels like you might be going in different directions all the time. But as things evolve so quickly, there are ways to like have that aha moment almost once every 3 or 4 or 5 months, and then you experiment and iterate and see where it lands and how it works. And I think that's what a lot of the big founders are doing, and the ones who are in the spotlight get criticized quite a bit for it. But the ones who are maybe less public get a chance to play and really see how they can tack that onto their Web 2 experience if they have a Web 2 experience.
Absolutely. I think that it's one of those, I don't know, it brought me back to how lonely could it be if you're building anything, right? If you're a founder. And yet these spaces and these communities, I think it gives it a room and a support system to not feel so alone and not feel like, okay, if I have to pivot, if I have to iterate and fix a few things, that doesn't mean that I'm failing. It means that I'm actually being courageous enough to like try, like figure something out and let's go for it. And taking that first step sometimes is like the hardest part. So I want to go with Bontrop. I'm messing up your name, but what got you to say like, okay, I'm gonna get started, and this is, I'm gonna start the clothing brand. I'm gonna partner with someone, and I'm built on Onchain.
Yeah, so I'll say my company's origin story has 2 parts. The first part was really just I was really unhappy in my last career, and I was at dinner with my wife, and she was training at the time to be a yoga instructor, and I just like made the comment of like, I don't know, maybe you can like open a yoga studio and I'll like sell clothes or something out of there, and like that'll just be like what we do, for the next chapter of our lives. And to be honest, it never did anything more than that. I just kind of stored that away somewhere in the back of my head. And it didn't come back up, actually. It was a Monday morning coffee with Captain after ApeFest Hong Kong. And the gentleman at the top left corner of your screen was raving about the experience that he had there and how this entire experience was unlocked by this JPEG that he owned. And I was like, and that's like the light bulb went off. It was like, look, we can't all own JPEGs, whether it's the cost or the tech barrier or MetaMask or whatever, right? But we can own clothes. And I know this guy named James who makes clothes. Let me give him a call and see if this is something that we can go and do. So that was the genesis of it. About whatever that was, a year and a half ago is when I kind of like think of the founding of, my company. And then building on chain, I agree with a lot of what Peter said, right? Like just being on chain isn't enough, in my opinion, right? Like for that being the central focal point of what you're building, I think it maybe worked in 21 or so. I don't know if it works anymore. You've got to actually have a product or a service that people want, right? So, and that sounds boring and businessy and Web 2y, but it's how humans work, right? So I think you still need to have something that people want. I do think Web3 expands that product set. And then it's how can you enhance that with Web3, right? We talked about loyalty, right? Like Peter nailed it with Jason did of like, you can do so much more with loyalty in Web3 because of what the tech enables you to do that the smile.ios of the world maybe can't. Now, those companies are doing a lot that are right. So can you take what they're doing and make it better, knowing what we know about the tech and how you can utilize the tech? So that for me is the exciting part about Onchain, is because it can take a lot of it can create all new models, right? But it can take a lot of existing models and amplify them and make people like us who are close to this tech that much more competitive in spaces that are ruled by giants as small, scrappy startups.
It was a banger. I just want to tug on that string a little bit, and then I know we're running long here, so we'll get these guys out of here. Really enjoying the panel. So often we see, we've just a lot of these topics we've been talking about here recently on the morning show, and the idea of, I'll use another line of Steve's, like, you don't have to throw the baby out with the bathwater. There's things that these Web2 companies have done that you can build on top of. You can make better. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. You don't have to start over. Just build on top of what they're already doing. And I know we're talking a lot about loyalty programs today in the D2C panel, but this is one area where, whether it's retail holidays or loyalty programs, like, we should be at a significant competitive advantage over our Web2 competitors. But we need to start with that base, right? Start with what they have, and then let's add on it, not try to create something entirely new that forgets about things like simple loyalty programs and, like table stakes that you would think in most businesses. Often I think too many, well, we're on chain, so we're gonna do this, and this is our competitive advantage. Well, that can be your competitive advantage, but don't start from zero. Start from a higher starting point by leveraging what's worked for decades in traditional retail. I don't know, Von Front, you got me on a rant there, that last one.
No, sorry. No, it's right. Like, it can be yes and, right? I think that's the fun thing. Early on, we were so reluctant to do anything that had been done before because we wanted to be, we were new and disruptive and, wanted to break away. I think what we're learning is like, you can do that. It's really hard to do that. But there's a lot of things that you can take the best of both worlds. And like I said before, I think it allows somebody like Peter to go compete with Anheuser-Busch, right? It allows somebody like Jason, to go compete with, the H&H Bagels of the world, right? It allows me to go compete with Lululemon, because we are going to be able to build a better product using the tech than those other brands that, to be honest, most of them aren't looking at Web3, which means that we get to zig while they zag.
Jason, I have one quick question for you. When it comes to the positioning of the brand, I feel like you have done an excellent job, and I almost I don't know. I could go as far as saying that, like, I could bet that everyone listening to this right now, they're familiar with it. What are some of those steps that you have taken in order to build that? Like, have you collaborated with content creators? Has it been just community members? Has it been sending out items? Like, what are some of those strategies for someone that perhaps is starting in this, in this business that have worked for you in the past?
Yeah, I'd say D, all of the above. No, I think there's no silver bullet right there. I think, and very much appreciate it. I think it's something I continue to struggle, challenge, and learn myself, right? I'm not a marketer by trade. But I think you just got to go out there and try things, engage with the community, and create these different activations, right? How do you engage people? And I think Von Frunton said it too, is like, some of this stuff isn't being reinvented, you know, and when you create a product today, the very first thing is go out there and test it with your friends or family, right? Of course, like you've got to take that with a grain of salt, right? Are people gonna pay you for it, or they're just gonna say, hey, it's a great product because they got it for free, right? So there is a difference there, right? And you know, I think you gotta have these different things and figure out how you quantify and get the feedback and create that kind of cycle of agile developments to refine a product and also get the right distribution and marketing and attention, right? So, you know, it's not something there's a secret formula for. I still struggle with it, but I think there are lots of ways to take advantage of those opportunities here, especially because of the community, because of tools. And you can look at things like Dashbow and what Rita's built there, right? Me not being a marketer or have skills with 3D assets, that makes it very easy for me to create some kind of activation engagement. And if I then go take, you know, products to a trade show with Bored Trading Co., you know, how can I use that and work with Rita to put together some digital assets that would be engaging, in which traditional brands, just like Von Franzen mentioned, like they don't have that capability, right? And you know, I think you've got to, you know, to take it full circle is look at some of the things that traditionally work, right? Tap into social media and the trends that are going on, but then take advantage of these tools and things that we have that are unique here.
Yeah, I know we got Wabam and one coming up here in a little bit, and we got to do our giveaways, but I do want to build on that really quickly and go back to Von Franzen for one more question. I know we're going to hear more about the product and everything you're building later, but something Jason just said there, something I've heard, you know, kind of Peter mentioned is like leveraging certain tools, certain opportunities. Can you just briefly talk about the usage of AI as an example and how you've done that? Because I feel like you said AI is your co-founder before, and that always resonates with me. So if you could build on that for people who are maybe thinking, look, this D2C stuff sounds fun, but it sounds really challenging if it's just me. It's just you for the most part, but you utilize that. So if you could build on that, because I think it's an actionable thing a lot of people could take away from this, and maybe a couple examples of how you use it.
Yeah. I've said many times ChatGPT is my co-founder. And boy, that new memory upgrade is really awesome because now I don't have to go back and remind it of a conversation we had 6 months ago. No, so you don't need a lot to get, depending on the industry, you don't need a lot to get started. So my AI kind of journey has been kind of like three phases, and I'll be real quick, right? So first was just ChatGPT, right? When you have a co-founder, you've got somebody to bounce ideas off of. You have somebody to think through things. You can just speak out loud and maybe work through some stuff. When you're a solopreneur, you don't have that, right? And your friends may get tired of you bugging them, asking them for advice all the time if it's not their company. So I just would find myself, you know, just talking to ChatGPT, right? And as every model advanced, I started getting better and better in answers. And now you can kind of program it to be critical and program it to be honest and call out your weak spots. So it's like at a very simplest form, AI has been that kind of sounding board for me, right? I do occasionally reach out to actual humans, but I'd say 90+% of my conversations are with a screen right now. I'm not sure that's healthy long term. We'll figure that out later. But then like there's other tools out there. So if you go look at my website, if you look at any of the content that I put out there on social media, that's also all AI. Right. And so I don't need to hire a photographer. I don't need to get models. I don't need to schedule a photo shoot. I don't need to be a video editor. I can do all of that now with AI tools. And so it has allowed me to get from 0 to 1 and maybe even 1 to 10 on my own for a lot cheaper than I otherwise could have. Right. If AI didn't exist, I doubt I would be here right now because I would have run out of money or I would have run out of runway of like, my skill set would not have been able to let me get to where I am. So I will say, and I'm more jump in my DMs. I'm more than happy to walk anybody through any of this. But I do think the tools that are out there, whether it's Web3, AI, or otherwise, do allow people to go a lot further on a lot less.
Awesome. Well, Look, I mean, I don't know if Laura or Cap, if you have any more questions. I know we got to do our drawings, but I appreciate all three of you personally. I think really good examples of different people who are building in different ways, whose products I all own, who I've all enjoyed, who I've all participated with. So I think, like, just as a consumer, very much appreciate the three of you on that.
Second. I would have rocked the Vonga pullover, but I would have gotten accused of favoritism and giving you home field advantage, so I had to leave it in the closet. I can vouch for it. It's super high quality, and just if you're not following these individuals, follow them, connect with them, pick their brains. They're super helpful. They're some of the best builders in the space, and they're at our level. So even if you think, oh, these guys are so far down the path, they're way ahead of me. They might have experiences that you don't have. They might be further ahead of you than something, but they're a great example, just as Raheem and Vera were, of like this. They're great. I don't want to say they're the stereotypical member of this community, but they really are genuinely good people. They want to help. And you may find yourself not picking Von Frutten's brain about loyalty programs or apparel, but potentially AI and how using AI as a co-founder. It's just like they're in the trenches, like the real business building trenches. And this is, I just wanted to double down on that, double tap on that I find this is, potentially the most valuable utility of this ecosystem is not just the quality of builders here, but how willing they are to help others and truly like collaborate with a desire to help, not just because they feel an obligation.
Yeah. Well, thank you three. Appreciate it. And I know we'll be hearing back from you again later on Front, but Peter, I got your beer from a vending machine in Lisbon. It was about the coolest thing I've ever done. So I think it's pretty awesome to see. So congrats on that collab. And obviously, Jason, we go way back, lunches in Miami and whatnot, discussing the future of this space. So all three of you friends and great people. So thanks for jumping through this morning.